living a full and well life is put together, authentic.
We feel it.
Take care of ourselves.
Hello and welcome back to the Wishing You Well podcast. I'm Amy Albero.
And I'm Catherine Van Eyck.
We're both licensed therapists, and we spend our days learning from our clients about their experiences. And on Wishing You Well, we want to continue to learn from others. So each week we share and hear stories about how we navigate our own journeys toward well-being.
Today on Wishing You Well, we're joined by Daniela Trotman. Daniela is a clinician here at Revive, and in this episode, she shares how wellness has played a role throughout her life. She talks about the role of movement, spirituality, and how community have been part of her career and overall well-being. She also tells us about her interest in candle making that blossomed into a business. This was a really enlightening conversation, and Daniela shares a lot of wisdom with us that we're really excited for you to hear. Welcome, Daniela. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited that you're here, and we want to talk all about your just experience navigating your own sense of well-being. But before we get into that, like kind of our main convo, we need to start, as we always do, with a little bit of a self-care check-in. Catherine and I do this every week, and we like to invite our guests to do that too, just to share a little bit about, what your self-care is looking like these days and in this season of life.
Okay. So for today, I think self-care is going okay. I actually have a candle burning next to me, so that's like a good plus. I had a really great cup of coffee this morning, so it made my day. But mostly these days, it's just making sure I get exercise, trying to get more sleep. That's been more of the priority over the past, say, 2 or 3 days. So we're doing good.
Mm-hmm. And it's all the these small things that you're talking about that actually are like pretty meaningful. Well, not the sleep thing. The sleep thing is obviously like a huge thing, but you're not talking about anything like humongously glamorous.
Yeah, that was a huge learning curve for me because I thought self-care and wellness had to be like you go to a spa, like you take your PTO, you do all these things, but life doesn't always allow you the time or space to do that. So it's like the tiny things that you can look forward to that give you a boost makes the most sense for me, and it's a lot easier to get them done.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've already done a lot of self-care kind of like overhaul-ish. Like you know a lot about self-care. And I'm curious, if we hadn't asked you the question, if we didn't pose it, would you have already thought about how your self-care is that candle next to you? Is that morning coffee that you had this morning? Like, was that already on your mind as having done self-care today and currently?
Yeah, I don't know if I like consciously register that those are all self-care things until I sit back and I'm like, what did I do for myself today? And if you had asked me this exact question a couple of years ago, my answer probably would have been like, I don't know, I didn't do anything for self-care, when really that's not true.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it does sound like it does sound like there whether it's like super conscious or not, like there is intentionality. Like I mean, obviously I'm very familiar with the Revive offices. Like you had to bring a candle in order to burn it. So like there is some intentionality to your practice, which I think is also really important. So
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk more about that, and especially like the candle aspect of things as we get into more of your story, so to speak. So definitely be prepared to chat a little bit more about that in a few.
We're ready.
Okay. Catherine, how about you? How's your self-care been this week?
Mine definitely builds off of last week. So Daniela, I talked a little bit about changing up my self-care based on where I am right now with lots of moving parts in my life. And so one thing that I'm doing consistently now is going on these morning walks with my daughter. So since last week, I've gone on them almost every day. And I think I like said it last week with intention, like we were talking about. But now that I've been really like immersed in doing it, it's been that much more self-care-y. They've been really meditative, and which is funny because typically you think about meditation and doing it by yourself, but like, with an infant, when she's not really responding to you in a way that an adult would on a walk, when I am walking with her and like have her on my hip and I am pointing out the sounds that the birds are making, or the changes in the leaves, or the flowers that are blooming. Like literally every single day I'm pointing out to her, like, oh no, look, like that, those cherry blossoms, they fell, and these other flowers came out. And so I'm being so observant of my surroundings, so much more than I would on a walk by myself in the past. And I'm also totally screen free on these walks because my husband and I try to keep our phones totally out of sight from her. And so I am totally unplugged, and I'm just with her and with nature. And it's been really cool because I'm like noticing things about this block that I've taken thousands of walks on at this point that I hadn't noticed. And it's really, really nice and peaceful.
There's so much like beauty in just being
that-
present.
Yeah. Right. And like if only we give ourselves the space to just notice, and having someone to like literally share it with, bring attention to it with, is like supporting your like experience of being present. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's been really nice. Can I just add to that self-care? I just got really hot. I need to put my hair up.
All good.
Woo.
Yeah, in the moment, in the moment self-care.
There we go. Okay, Amy, how about you? How are you? How's your self-care?
I'm good. I have to say, I really enjoy being able to work with so many people who have like just well-being kind of on the forefront of their mind, because it is something that does come up in conversation. And last week we had a Revive Night In, which is like, I mean, you both know, but it's when we like get together like as people, not just as therapists, and like just talk about what's going on, or just like spend casual time together. And one of our colleagues, popular Wishing You Well guest, Carly King, was talking about how she is really trying to declutter right now, and decluttering closets and things like that. And so I had asked her, she's like, I don't know, how much I'm going to get done. And so I had said, like, I want to hear, like, when I see you on Tuesday for our weekly meeting, like, I want to hear how it's going. And she kicked off our meeting this week and told me about like all that she and her husband and daughter got done on the decluttering front. And I was like, oh my, you have inspired me. I need to get in my closet, specifically here in Miami, because it's kind of all kind of my like that I wasn't like so wild about, that I brought down here. And so I'm not wearing it. And so I really want to get rid of it, make more space, make more room. Just, the like decluttering is so does so much for your physical space, but also mental and emotional space too. And so I'm hoping to kind of get a little bit of that like outer order, inner calm sense, because my closets, my like external environment like feels very cluttered right now, and that is so reflective of my inner environment as well. And I haven't done it yet, so this is like a self-care homework, is that I want, my goal is to declutter or work toward decluttering my Miami closet, because I'm feeling like I'm seeing the effects of just, living in two places and not having a lot of time really to get settled in each.
It's your self-care bucket list.
Yes, seriously. We really should do a self-care bucket list, because that is one. And it's like, it's one of those that like, I never want to do it. And then as soon as it's done, it's like, why don't I do this all the time? And it just way too much time passes in between. So this is often like to call it a bucket list item feels legit, because it's like, it feels like this big, really important, meaningful thing. But it's way more attainable than what I build it up to in my head.
Well, and you also did part of the work already, like even without realizing the fact that you just brought all these clothes down to Miami, and you're like, Miami Amy's gonna wear these things. Miami Amy, she's gonna do it. Miami,
Amy.
she's got it.
That's your new nickname.
And then I've used it before. I've definitely used it before. She didn't do it. She dropped the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, my Amy is slacking, but in all fairness, I do have a like different part of my identity that comes out here that I like am still like getting acquainted with. Also, Connecticut Amy misunderstood just how hot it gets down here. And so I brought so many tops down that I envisioned wearing with like jeans. No. Jeans do
Jeans?
not belong in the 313.
When it's hot here, you don't even like want to wear anything long, anything touching your body. So jeans in Miami just sounds so diabolical.
Yes. It seriously does. Like I'm sweating thinking about it. So yes, to your point, Catherine, a lot of the work has already happened. I just need to kind of like keep the ball rolling and, you know, let Miami Amy, you know, shine a little bit down here with
Yeah, don't just subject Miami Amy to like your leftovers, you know?
I know,
Care
it's
about
true.
her.
I know. I could rationalize that shopping is in order, but I'll pause on that for now.
One
We see the
self-care thing at a
vision.
time.
Exactly.
We see the vision. You like clear
I
it
need to
out
make-
for
I
your
need to-
self-care.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, I could dangle that carrot for myself. Daniela, I think you just solved it. That will be my like motivating factor is if I clear this out, then I have room to kind of create a new vision of a wardrobe down here. Okay, I'm done. After this, that is where I'm going.
Okay, so we're not here to just talk about your self-care, although it's part of it. We want to hear about you in general first. Can you just tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, so like specifically like upbringing, all that stuff, or just like me now?
Wherever you want to go with it.
Okay, that always feels like such a loaded question. So yeah, I was born and raised in Bridgeport. I have like the Brady Bunch for a family. I have 6 siblings, including a twin. We're fraternal, so that's really cool. I have like a built-in besties, and I was pretty involved and really athletic growing up. I did cheer all through middle school, high school, college. So I'm like adjusting, even though I've been removed from college for so long, just like not having movement was like a really weird adjustment. I'd like to think that I'm introverted, but I hear from other people that that just is not the case. So I don't know if I was just trying to convince myself that I'm an introvert when I'm not. But other than that, outside of like being a therapist, love my family. I'm really involved in my church community. That's like been a saving grace for me ever since I've been involved. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I think it's hilarious that you think you're an introvert, first of all.
You want to know why? My twin sister is actually an introvert. And I feel like growing up and having to share so many spaces with her, it's like, how do we balance the two? And now like we went to different colleges, we have different friend groups, like we have different interests now. Like she's very creative, like does makeup, content creation, all that fun stuff. And it's like sometimes I don't even want to look at any of that. I guess just like kind of rubbing off from her and just saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't talk so much. Maybe I should like tone it back and not do all these things. Which trying to force myself to be someone that I'm not is just never gonna work. But I do have times where I like my solitude and I need my solitude. So I guess I just need balance.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and you touched on some of this that I definitely want to hear a bit more about, but I also imagine and I envision cheer as something that is also like very extroverted, and I imagine like the other side of that is like that can be draining in some way too, if like just like literally putting that kind of energy out there, needing to like find space to recharge, so that you have it to give again. And that's same with being a therapist too. Like it's so outward in what you're kind of expressing and giving.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so crazy to me sometimes when I tell people that I used to do cheer growing up. They're always like, well, that's not a surprise. Or, oh, I should have known that. And I guess that's just because of like how like bubbly my personality is, because that's like typical for a cheerleader. Like you have to be all the time. But it's hard having that balance sometimes when you're so used to being that way. It's like, where do you have space to like kind of take the mask off and not be that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, can you speak to that a little bit? Like how you sort of through your life navigated that? You talked about kind of some of the awareness you were having of like growing up with your built-in bestie with your sister and like trying to find balance there, finding balance in cheer as your kind of career at that point. And now, like, what has that looked like for you trying to figure out like where the edges are and where you might need to like lean into achieving balance in a different way?
Yeah, so that transition was really hard because cheer took up so much of my life, and it was like my only coping skill and outlet. Like whatever I was feeling, I would just like leave it on the mat, and just having that camaraderie between my teammates was really special to me. And then graduating and not having that, and then also experiencing a pandemic where when I was an athlete, I was so busy all of the time between school, practice, games, like competition when we had it. It was just sometimes too much, but I didn't know anything else. And not having that and being forced into a space of stillness was like, it felt very chaotic inside because I didn't have the same like self care or coping skills that I used to manage and regulate everything else. So I had no choice but to find something else, but it really took a lot for me to identify that that's what I was experiencing, just kind of like the withdrawal of not having my tools anymore.
You just mentioned a ton of aspects of cheer that brought you almost like this sense of identity, the sense of self that you started to lack upon graduating and leaving that all on the mat. And then before, you also mentioned the movement aspect. So like how influential was that in terms of like your wellness and movement and how that relates to each other now?
Yeah, I didn't realize how influential it was until I didn't have it anymore. Like I was just so used to constantly like having practice like 3, 4, 5 times a week in games. I didn't question how much I was moving. Like being fit, not being out of breath every time I walked up the stairs. Like I took those things for granted. And when I realized like my body was just feeling so stiff, like I didn't feel comfortable or settled within my own skin, I really had to do an inventory and say, okay, what am I doing different? What I'm doing different now is that I'm sitting down more often. I'm not getting any movement. So where can I start doing that? So I tried doing YouTube videos in my apartment and just getting movement there, but it just wasn't like intense enough for me. So it pushed me to try to find other things. Like now I do Orange Theory. I have a couple of friends who are personal trainers, so I'll go to the gym with them. See, I will always ride hard for Orange Theory because it's like so intense, but it's so good. So now in that way, like if I'm having a rough day, it's like, all right, I'm just going to book this class and just like throw it on the rower, just run it out on the tread and just let it go. And then after that, I feel so much more balanced because I just exerted all of that energy and I don't have to store it anymore.
Promise this podcast is not sponsored by Orange Theory. I feel like I talk about Orange Theory every week, but I was just thinking, like, as a former athlete too, like there is so much of like, and I resonate so much with what you were saying of like, just grew up moving and like that just being such a staple in my life, and the way that I moved, no pun intended, like the way that I moved through life was with all movement, so central to my day to day, that I also like didn't realize what it did for me, didn't realize how meaningful it was until I was done. And yeah, trying to find something that kind of captures that intensity, maybe competitiveness for me, and camaraderie as well. Like it really is, it's hard to find as like a grown adult in the same way that like it's kind of built in when you're playing team sports growing up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking about how you most likely, right, like when you decided to cheer, you weren't like thinking about the movement benefits that you were going to get from it. Like you were a kid, so you're probably just like, this seems fun. I want to do this. And then you just did it, and it was built in, like Amy, like you're saying. And then all of a sudden you're an adult and we don't have these built-in things anymore. You have to seek them out yourself, and that's so much harder to do.
And Amy, you're right. Like, especially as an adult, having spaces where you can just be around other people and not really experience exactly the same that you did when you were younger, but just have something similar that ignites that passion for you is so hard, especially when life is more chaotic and you don't always have the time.
For sure. One other thing that I also appreciate about Orange Theory is that it's like it's the same workout for everybody. So like Daniela, if you go today and I go today, despite the fact that we're in different cities, like we're doing the same thing, and we can still be connected over that, even though we're not doing it together. I think that's that sense of connectedness and belonging for me is a really big part of my like idea of what well-being. Again, Orange Theory, if you want to sponsor us, you can email wishingyouvell@revivecfw.com. Okay, so going back to kind of your journey, Daniela, you talked about movement being a part of your story. You also talked about spirituality and being your involvement in your church being really meaningful to kind of who you are now. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can talk about my faith and spirituality all day, so get ready.
Let's do it.
A lot of my journey, like I identify as a Christian, always have, always will, and I really do hold firm to the principles that I read in scripture. And through that, it forces me to practice mindfulness and just being present and having that time for solitude and like quiet. Also thinking about my identity in Christ and what that means for me and just who I am. It fosters a completely different perspective of like respect for myself and respect for my body and what that looks like. And also how I show up for other people. Like one scripture in particular talks about how your body's a temple for the Holy Spirit to dwell. And if in my faith, like I believe in the Holy Spirit, I don't want him to dwell in a place that's like shabby and that's not well taken care of because there's so much value in who I am. So I have to nurture myself in the best ways that I know how. And also with the instructions that I'm given on how to do that. So that means making sure I eat good food so I feel good within my skin. Make sure I'm talking to myself kindly so I'm not leading with the negative thoughts. And also so I have a place where I can put all the bad things I'm feeling and experiencing. How to show up for other people and how to love other people. And also just be the best version of myself so I can fulfill the purpose that I have in this life. And if I don't take care of myself, like you hear the saying, like you can't pour from an empty cup. If I don't do what I'm supposed to do, like there's literally no way that I can show up for anybody else. And it's also another area for like discipline that I got one from being an athlete, two being in this field and just like being a human being in general.
Does so much for you. Has it always been so powerful for you?
In some ways, yes and no. I don't think it didn't have that much of an impact until I really made the commitment to really immerse myself into it. And there's been like no negative benefits to it since then because I've had so many positive improvements to my mental health, to my physical health, to my relationships with other people. And I really honed in on that journey about a year ago, where I felt like my self-care was a mess. I didn't even like feel comfortable within my own skin. My relationships were like really chaotic. And I needed something, someone and somewhere to go to just say, okay, I'm gonna like hand all of this over to you because you are greater than me and all these things that I'm experiencing. What do I do now? Just surrendering to the experience that I needed an anchor to keep me grounded in so much chaos.
Yeah, well, and as you say that that I can't believe it's like only a year, and also like a year. It feels like it's relatively new in some way. Like, but it's also, as you're saying, like feels like you've been so immersed in it. And if I think about that time frame, like there was you were going through a lot of changes and transitions at that time, whether it was personally, professionally, like there was a lot going on. And so like that search for an anchor seems like it makes a lot of sense that that was a time that you were wanting that, craving that. So how did you go about like finding your like church community, or was that something that you were already kind of embedded in?
Yeah, so that was relatively new. Growing up, my grandmother on my dad's side is a Christian, so like I learned a lot about the faith from her. I went to Catholic school from like fourth grade through high school, went to a Jesuit college. Like I had some relationship and understanding of what like faith and spirituality looked like. Um, and one of my friends from undergrad had reached out to me and invited me to her church. So I was going there for about a year, and a lot of it was virtual because this was like mid pandemic. And then I stopped going there because I felt like it wasn't the best fit. And then I think it was the week before April 2nd, because April 2nd was my first service at my current church. My twin sister actually invited me. And I was praying for a space because I was so desperate to like have community of people with the same values. And her texting me and saying, "Hey, like, do you want to go to church this weekend?" was an answered prayer. And I didn't expect that that would come like from her. Not to say that she's not with the faith, but it's just not something that we really talked about much. And she ended up finding this church because she works in a nonprofit, and one of her coworkers was going to this church. And a couple of other people that she was connected to from work also invited her. So when one of the pastors at this church invited her to go, that was like the last straw. And she didn't want to go by herself. So she texted me and invited me to go. And then ever since then, it's like I've been glued there. And I told my pastor, I said, "Hey, if you don't want me here, you're going to have to evict me because I practically moved in." And he laughed and like he found that hilarious. But I was like, "No, you're laughing, but I'm so serious. I'm not going anywhere because this space has done so much for me, and I just feel so much peace when I'm in the building. Like after services, I will literally hang out and just like talk with my friends, sit with them for hours just so I don't have to go home, because if I go home, I'm just gonna lay down."
It's incredible that like you said, you were praying for this space, you were seeking it out, and it happened. It happened. Your sister organized it, but it happened, and it was something that you like had put out into the atmosphere. You know, whether somebody listening is a believer in the same way you are or not, there's a commonality around wanting something and for lack of a better term, like manifesting it and trying to put it into place in a way that feels right. And that happened, and it's so cool. I mean, I was thinking about last year, 2 years ago, I think, at this point, when Amy and I, were talking about like this yoga journey that I was trying to find, and like I kept going to one yoga studio to the next, to the next, to the next. And I was like, this isn't what I want. I don't want like the trendy place that like people are just going to wear their outfits. Like I'm just trying to find something where I can feel myself and like feel grounded and feel something, feels like a sense of spirituality. And then I landed there and it was like, oh, this happened. This is so cool. And I also like just never wanted to leave. It was awesome.
When you find what you
Yeah.
want and what
Well,
you need, it's hard to let it go.
yeah. Well, and I do think that a lot of people give up before they find it, because finding it can be a challenge, or can feel disappointing, or can feel like, okay, I'm praying for this, I'm asking for this, like where is it? Where is it already? And so I guess, after you had that experience of like trying, one church and feeling like, oh, it's not the right fit, like what do you think kept you going to kind of like, how did you, I guess, maintain your faith and in your prayer that it was going to be, you're going to get it answered?
Yeah, so even though I wasn't in like a physical space, I tried to develop a routine for myself the best way that I could. So that meant like reading my scripture, meditating on it, journaling about it, watching services online from other churches and seeing where stuck, just so I wasn't denying myself of the opportunity in the space, even though it wasn't in a separate physical location, because there's still that relational aspect that I needed, even if it was just between me and my creator, rather than like me and, other people who are around my age or older and have the same faith. So that was a good rhythm in the interim until I was able and more prepared to be in an actual space. I also think my level of readiness to really commit and when I was at my first church was like not there, where about a year ago I was like, all right, I'm tired of just like not being in the mix and I need something. And when I got there, I literally answered every single prayer that I needed, checked off every single box. And I also just had to be willing to be there and just see how it was and how it felt instead of just trying it once, twice, or 3 times and then just giving up on it.
Yeah. I mean, and as you're talking about this, Daniela, I'm thinking about how alongside your again, I have the privilege and the advantage of kind of knowing you outside of the last 30 so minutes that we've been talking, but like your growth and your kind of your journey across the last year and a half has been accompanied by your commitment to your faith and this church, and kind of seeing what has happened in your life a lot as you've been immersed in this community, and your faith has been beautiful, right? Like achieving career milestones, making adjustments to your career, reinvigorating your side business so much. And I know a lot of that, especially on your side business, which I definitely want to get to, also fostered by like the support of your church. And so there's such a synergy and just so much overlap and a sense of support that really shows in just the way that you have grown and developed over this last year, which is why, like, to say a year, like, it's like, wow, I can't believe it's only been a year. And like, damn, it's only been a year.
Feels like a long time, but it's not. And so much can change in such a short period of time if you're willing to just like ride the wave and have the experience. So I'm super, super grateful because like literally every area of my life changed for the better.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And I think it is a mix of like, at least from what I've seen from you, it's like a mix of like just staying open to the possibility that things will change, open to support, and also like working really freaking hard and like staying consistent in what you're doing. And I know we had you and I had separately talked about like your candle business and what you were doing with that, what you wanted to do with that. And you were kind of contemplating what to do about it. And then it kind of took this turn. And so I'm wondering if you can share a little bit about your business's journey, Essence of Care, and where that fits in the mix of your well-being, and how that has also been a staple as you have been on this like journey toward well-being here.
Yeah. So it's been a long journey and I have so much more time and space left to go. But I really started this business in the pandemic. I think during the pandemic, most people were like bored out of their minds and lonely and needed something to do. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't remember what came first, like the chicken or the egg. Like if I just had an interest in making candles and looked it up, or if I was just like mindlessly scrolling through YouTube trying to find something to watch and a candle video came up. What I do know is that I've always loved candles. Like Bath and Body Works throughout my entire life have gotten way too much of my money. During the pandemic, I was literally going to grocery stores because I needed something to do, just walking around and smelling candles. And then at that point, when I don't remember if I just had a thought to make the candles or if the video came up, it was like, I should make my own candles so I can be cost effective because, COVID prices were like insane for everything. So I started, making candles, finding new scents, and I literally felt like a kid in the candy store every time I would get a new fragrance and smell it and just like have that sensory experience and then make the candles, having to learn how to have patience to let them cure for 2 weeks and then burning them and just being it's just a lot of work to make a good candle, but that's why they're good for a reason. But it was just a lot of work and I put so much of my energy into it. And I was literally just giving candles out for free to like my friends and my family. And people around me were like, you just need to start selling candles. Like, why are you wasting all of your money to make candles and you're not making a profit? So it took a lot for me to kind of shake my own anxiety and like imposter syndrome. Like I was making candles for literally a year straight. before I started selling them. And it's been really, really cool to see like pictures of my first batches of candles, the pictures of my candles now. And I'm at a point now where I'm trying to figure out how to implement my identity as like a clinician and also with my faith and my own self-care routine with having like candles and fragrances, because I have so many ideas of what I want to do. It's just putting them together to make it stick.
Mm. I can attest that your candles are fantastic. Do you have a favorite scent right now?
Amy, your favorite scent? Right now, okay, I have two. Baby powder, that is like top two.
Baby
Like smells like
powder.
authentic
Yum.
Johnson and Johnson's baby powder. Yeah. And strawberry guava is also like a close contender. That one's really popular.
Both sound really good.
Yeah, they do.
I'll bring some to the office.
So as this began to unfold and as you were like, let me start doing this myself, let me start actually like putting myself into it. Well, a lot of the times when people kind of take something that they're passionate about and then turn it into a business, then it like takes some of that like level of peace out of it, or like sometimes it takes that level of like, sometimes it like takes away some of the passion because all of a sudden now it's like an obligation. Has that happened for you at all, or is there still like that feeling like I'm doing something that's really meaningful to me?
Yeah, and it's happened more times than I'd like to admit, but like genuinely being honest, I think I put so much pressure on like having a business and like having it go well, where I didn't really expect the trial and error, and also just the different transitions that I've gone through in life has definitely impacted my ability to show up for my business, to the way that I like manage my business. And it really made me have to kind of take a step back during different periods to say, okay, here's what my capacity is right now. Here's what my vision is. Where can we meet in the middle? And if I can't meet in the middle, how about I take a break and then reconvene at a time where I feel a little bit more balanced? And it really came down to accepting that that's okay, because I'm a human being and not a robot. And if the passion kind of leaves me, maybe that's an opportunity or a sign that I should pivot what I'm doing a little bit more. So that's why I said earlier, thinking about how to blend like being my authentic self in the different roles that I fulfill in my life with my business. Or do I feel like I have to do that? Can I keep them separate? So these are questions and like constant things that I have to reevaluate like often. And sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I'm like, all right, like out of sight, out of mind. I don't even want to like look at it or talk about it. And that's okay too, because forcing myself to do something that I don't feel like I have the mind space to do is like not going to be beneficial. And I also don't want like a crappy candle that no one likes.
Daniela, where were you when I was, starting my business? Because I wish I had your wisdom. I mean, I still need it. So I'm glad to hear it.
I feel like as that was rolling off my tongue, I was like, oh, Amy's about to relate to this question.
But Daniela, her she's navigating it much more gracefully than I am, and I did. But that's
We're gonna have to go to the drawing board, Amy.
We'll sit down together on Monday and figure it out.
Okay.
But I think I do like, it sounds like whether you're doing it 100% of the time or not, like you're trying to keep the judgment out of it as much as you can, trying to just when you hit a wall or it's not going quite in how you want it to go, like you're not saying like, screw this, like I'm done. You're more saying like, okay, this is telling me something. And whether that's I need a pivot or I need a pause or I need to step away from this for right now to like go back to the drawing board. Like, I think that also is really meaningful. And I imagine that is probably an internal skill and a way of coping that you've developed over time to like have that threshold around like okay, things aren't going perfectly, that doesn't mean that all is lost. That just means, again, like this is information here for me to take and do something with.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are times where I like have my mini tantrum and I'm like, all right, like I'm over it. I don't want to do this anymore. But being realistic, like giving myself that moment to like feel what I'm feeling and then processing that and then moving, like doing something about it is more reality based than just saying like, I don't want to do this anymore and throwing it all away because that won't make me feel good either. Even though in the moment it sounds amazing, long term, it's not a way that I should operate.
Mm-hmm. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
Where do you see Essence of Care going?
I can't tell you my secrets. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Honestly, I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. Some days I'm like, I would love to open like a shop and just like sell my candles, be there, make candles. And then other days I'm like, how can I integrate that with my actual career? Or will that be my career? So I don't know. I think right now I'm just thinking about how I can be present and show up for myself and my business. And then I can like figure out the rest later.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's how we all need to function.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think then like the answers will come. We just met with someone last week, Sophia Mullins, and she's kind of at this place of trying to think about what she wants to do in terms of her career overall. And she had said something, I don't remember if it was on the pod or after, but just like around like I don't want to necessarily like make any decisions right now. I want to kind of like let see what comes, like see what comes to me. And I think that there is a beauty in that. And I think like we generally get in this idea of like we need to pick, like we need to have it figured out immediately in order to go forward. And I think that's what holds us back. Like that's what keeps us stuck in paralysis analysis. And so I think the idea of like I can let myself continue to figure it out along the way is such a gift that you can give to yourself. Because I mean, and this is true of my own experience, like I can plan 5 minutes down the road and it's just like not going to happen that way. And if I can let go of that, like the need to have the answer of like where it's going, it gives me so many more opportunities and I'm open to much more possibilities that way. So I love your mindset around it.
Yeah, thank you. It's like really evaluating expectations. And it's like, as people, we change all the time. So why do the things that we do have to be so rigid and stay exactly the same? In a lot of ways, it's not always possible, nor should it, because as you grow and you experience different things, your wants and your needs change.
So well said.
We've talked a lot about different aspects of your life that represent wellness. Your spirituality is huge for you. Your candle making business as well. Cheer and movement and the collectiveness of all of that. Is there anything else? Is there anything else to Daniela's wellness that we have not gotten to that you'd like to talk about?
One wellness hack that I just unlocked is going for walks with my colleagues in the office or outside of the office specifically.
Aww.
On Monday, Emma and I walked a little bit over a mile, and I just felt so good after that. And I was like, wow, a mile. We should do this more often, really. And in the Stanford office, I have a spot in the back that I sit at. So whenever I have a couple of few minutes, or like, a cancellation, I'll just go and sit outside and really try to get as much sun as I can and just have air to really sit and register what I'm feeling in my body and what's on my mind, because, this work can be a lot sometimes. And having an opportunity to kind of shift and recenter is good. Other than that, I love to cook and bake. So that's good for my wellness too. One, because I'm having the experience of making it. Two, just the look on people's faces or getting feedback from them when they like actually eat what I cooked or bake like, trumps almost anything at that rate. So all that, if you put it in
Can
umbrella,
you
is like
can you share something?
not last night, the night before. Okay, so I'm trying to meal prep and like cook my meals in advance because my work week is so busy. This week I made a baked mac and cheese in my cast iron skillet. I made some pork chops and I made some jerk shrimp with broccoli, rice, and I have salad. So I just like mix different things for my meal. So it's like, one, it's an act of kindness because I don't have to worry about cooking myself a meal at like 9 o'clock at night. And two, I'm like, wow, thank you, past Daniela, for making all this food.
I love thinking about it as an act of kindness for yourself. And also, all sounds delicious. I'm coming over.
You're welcome
Yes.
anytime.
It sounds so great. I promise you, I will give you the look of delight when I eat it that you are looking for.
We have to have like a Revive night potluck, and I'll bring something.
A potluck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great
It's a
idea.
great idea.
Potluck, but Daniela brings it all.
We need like the party planning team, the event planning team in the school.
Yes, I will share that with them instead. Okay, well, as one final question that I've like started to be asking our guests, and this is putting you a little bit on the spot, I realize, but like so much of our experiences toward like finding well-being are based on a lot of learnings and reflection. And I'm wondering, as you think about kind of who and where you are now, and where you started, if there is anything that you could share with your past self that you think it would be helpful for our listeners to also hear, what do you think that would be?
Slow down and show yourself some grace. That's huge. And that's something that I really needed to hear. And that's something that I'm trying to tell myself more consistently because I'm so used to being so busy all of the time and having so much to do that sometimes it's hard to even have an opportunity to be present. I have to remind myself, literally, slow down. It's okay. And show yourself some kindness. Like grace is something that you inherently get. It's a right. And we don't have to be meaner to ourselves than, we already are. And that life is sometimes. Things aren't always going to be roses and daisies, but you can try to find pockets of peace where you can.
I love that. We do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing all of your wisdom and your experiences. Can you please tell our listeners where they can find you / Essence of Care on Instagram?
Yes, my handle is at the Essence of Care. And then
Awesome. Yes, we will add that into our show notes too, so you can give that page a follow and see what Daniela is up to over there. You can also follow along with us at Wishing You Well Pod on Instagram. You can follow Catherine at Catherine Van Eyck, me at Amy Albero LCSW, and our big umbrella Instagram at ReviveCFW. Send us emails to wishingyouvell@revivecfw.com for feedback, for questions, for guest suggestions, for anything. We love hearing from you. And until next time, we are wishing you well.